An ordinary man, ignored by everyone during the night, holds a secret talent that can change his life forever. Who will dare to see it? The sun was setting in New York when Rebecca Matthews turned off her computer in her office on the top floor of the building that housed the Matthews Group headquarters. At 45, she commanded one of the largest technology empires in America with the precision of a Swiss watch. Her reputation was that of a cold, calculating, and extremely competent woman. No one questioned her decisions, which were always based on meticulous analysis and sharp strategic vision. But there was a secret that not even her trusted assistant, Megan, knew. In recent years, Rebecca had developed a peculiar habit: visiting company branches across the country dressed as an ordinary person, without the weight of her name or position. It wasn't corporate espionage, but a need that even she couldn't completely explain. It was as if she needed to feel the real pulse of the company she had built, beyond the graphs and reports that reached her desk daily. "I'll spend the weekend in Philadelphia," she informed Megan while organizing her bag. "Personal matters." "Of course, Dr. Matthews. Would you like me to arrange for a car to pick you up at the airport?" "That won't be necessary. I prefer to drive." Megan nodded, already accustomed to these sudden trips by her boss. She didn't ask questions. She had learned that Rebecca valued discretion above all else. 3 hours later, Rebecca was driving through Philadelphia in her rental car. The city had a different rhythm from New York, slower, less oppressive. The local branch of the Matthews Group occupied a modern building in the Rittenhouse district, with 12 floors of glass and concrete that reflected the evening lights. Most employees had already gone home by that hour, with only the night crew and some workaholics remaining. Rebecca parked in the basement, where the security cameras had blind spots that she already knew well. She swapped her heels for comfortable sneakers she kept in the trunk and put on a simple jacket over her silk blouse, a subtle but effective transformation. Not that anyone would easily recognize her. Few employees knew what the CEO looked like, as she rarely appeared in photos or public events. It was as she was getting out of the car that she noticed something unusual. At the security post near the emergency exit, a faint light flickered. It wasn't the building's standard lighting, but something smaller, like a flashlight. Curiosity drew her closer. She walked silently until she could get a better view without being noticed. A man in a blue uniform was sitting in a simple chair, leaning over what appeared to be a thick book. The portable flashlight, with a clearly weak battery, illuminated the pages with a yellowish light. Next to him, an open notebook was full of handwritten notes. The security guard seemed completely absorbed, oblivious to Rebecca's presence. Occasionally, he would furrow his brow, scribble something in the notebook, and return to the book. There was something deeply touching about that scene. The contrast between the cold corporate parking garage environment and that man's solitary dedication created an image that would remain etched in Rebecca's memory. She observed for a few minutes, staying in the shadows, long enough to notice that the book was about advanced programming, something related to algorithms and data structures. In the following days, Rebecca adjusted her routine to pass by the parking garage at the same time. She discovered that the security guard's name was Daniel Nelson. He was 32 years old and had been working the night shift for almost 2 years. He was respected by his colleagues, punctual and discreet. But what really intrigued Rebecca was his dedication to studying during the intervals between his rounds. One night, she decided to do something she had never done before in her anonymous visits: intervene. She bought a newly released technical book on software development, much more up-to-date than the material Daniel was consulting. She left it in the guardhouse with a simple note: "For your studies, you're on the right track." The next day, hidden behind a column, she observed Daniel's reaction upon finding the gift. He picked up the book carefully, as if it was something fragile. He examined the cover, flipped through some pages, and read the note repeatedly. His expression mixed, surprise and suspicion. He looked around as if searching for a hidden camera or someone who might be watching. Finally, he put the book in his backpack and continued his work, but Rebecca noticed that something had changed in his posture. That simple gesture had created an invisible connection between them, a connection Rebecca hadn't planned, but that now deeply intrigued her. In the following weeks, she began to develop small interactions. First, they were just cordial greetings as she passed by the guardhouse. Then, brief comments about the weather or some news. Daniel responded politely, but always maintained a respectful distance, as befitted his position. He had no idea who she really was, and Rebecca preferred to keep it that way. "You're always reading when I pass by here," she commented one night, stopping in front of the guardhouse. Daniel looked up from the book, the same one she had left weeks before, and smiled slightly. "I'm trying to learn on my own," he replied. "Technology doesn't wait for anyone." "Programming isn't something easy to learn by yourself," observed Rebecca. "It certainly isn't," Daniel agreed, closing the book. "But when you don't have many options, you do what you can with what you have." There was a serene determination in his voice that impressed Rebecca. It wasn't resentment or self-pity. It was just the acknowledgement of a reality he faced with dignity. "Do you work for the company?" he asked. "Yes," replied Rebecca, maintaining the simplified version she always used. "Analytics department. I like to work late when it's quieter." "I understand. I also prefer the tranquility of the night. It's easier to think." The conversation flowed with surprising naturalness. Daniel talked about his interrupted studies in computer science, about how he had to leave college when his father suffered a serious health problem, about the 3 jobs he had maintained simultaneously to help his family. He mentioned with pride his younger sister, Cassie, who had managed to get a full scholarship in engineering and was the future of the family, as he said with a genuine smile. Rebecca, in turn, kept her story simple and partially true. She talked about her interest in understanding how the company worked beyond the numbers, about liking to observe people. She didn't mention her position, her power, or her wealth. She was just Rebecca, not the Dr. Matthews who terrified executives in board meetings. When she said goodbye that night, she felt something strange, yet familiar. A real human connection, without the filters that normally separated her life from others. Something she hadn't experienced in a long time. And she realized she wanted more. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll continue. 2 weeks later, Rebecca returned to Philadelphia. This time, there were no scheduled meetings or official visits. There was only Daniel and that strange feeling of freedom she experienced, away from the weight of her position. During this period, she had thought a lot about him and the dedication he showed to his studies. People like him were rare. People who, even facing significant obstacles, found ways to move forward without losing their dignity. In her bag, she carried an old laptop, deliberately configured with various problems, a small test she had carefully crafted to verify Daniel's skills without him realizing her true intentions. "Good evening," she greeted as she approached the guardhouse. "I see you're still studying." Daniel looked up and smiled when he recognized her. "You're persistent. Not many people from the upper floors come by here so frequently." "Maybe because they don't know what they're missing," replied Rebecca, returning the smile. "And please, no ma'am, call me Rebecca." "As you wish, Rebecca." There was a polite hesitation in his voice, as if crossing that barrier of formality was something significant. Perhaps it was, she thought. The corporate world was full of invisible barriers, and that was just one of them. "I have a problem," said Rebecca, taking the laptop out of her bag. "This computer is practically unusable, slow, freezing with error messages. Could you take a look? I can pay for the service, of course." Daniel observed the device with interest. "No need to pay. I can check it during my round breaks. I just can't promise I'll fix it, but I'll do my best." "More than fair," she replied, handing him the laptop. For the next 3 days, Rebecca briefly stopped by the guardhouse just to check on the progress. Daniel always had news to share. He had identified malware, memory problems, outdated drivers. He spoke about it with technical enthusiasm, using terms that many executives in the IT department of the Matthews Group would have difficulty explaining with such clarity. On the 4th night, he was waiting for her with the laptop turned on and working perfectly. "I managed to fix most of the problems," he explained, showing the improvements. "I removed more than 20 malicious programs, reorganized the file system, installed a lighter version of the operating system, and optimize the startup settings. I also installed some protection programs that won't overload the machine. Rebecca was genuinely impressed. How did you learn all this studying alone at night? Daniel shrugged in a gesture that minimized his own merit. When you're passionate about something, time is never enough, but somehow it becomes enough. There was wisdom in that simple phrase, wisdom that came from experience, not from books. Rebecca felt a mixture of admiration and sadness, admiration for Daniel's natural talent and sadness from knowing how many other similar talents were wasted every day due to lack of opportunities. "Have you thought about going back to college?" she asked. A brief smile crossed Daniel's face before transforming into something more restrained. "Every day, but with a security guard's salary, paying rent in Philadelphia and helping my parents in Camden, it gets complicated. One day, maybe." And if an opportunity in IT came up, even without a completed degree, then it would be different, he replied with a glimmer in his eyes. "With a chance like that, I'd make it work. I'd work twice as hard, study 3 times as much if necessary." Rebecca nodded, storing that information. An idea was beginning to form in her mind. In the following weeks, her visits to Philadelphia became more frequent. With each meeting, she proposed new technical challenges for Daniel, always disguised as personal problems she needed to solve. He never disappointed. More than solving problems, he always explained the process, shared knowledge, showed genuine enthusiasm. On one of those nights, when rain was falling heavily over the city, Rebecca arrived at the parking garage drenched. Daniel offered a clean towel he kept in his locker and hot coffee from his thermos. "Why do you do this?" she asked while drying her hair. "Why do you care so much?" "Do what?" he asked, confused. "Help. Share what you know. Care about others. Many people in your position would keep knowledge to themselves, thinking only about how to use it to get ahead." Daniel reflected for a moment before responding. "My dad is a bricklayer, or was, before the stroke. He always said that the only thing no one can take from you is what you have here," he pointed to his own head, "and that stored knowledge is like stagnant water. It becomes stagnant and loses value. We only truly grow when we help others. Grow too." That night, Rebecca returned to her hotel thoughtful. Daniel's words echoed in her mind, painfully contrasting with the corporate culture she herself had helped build at the Matthews Group, competitive, individualistic, often ruthless. How much talent was being wasted? How many Daniels were scattered throughout the company, invisible behind uniforms, badges, and rigid hierarchies? It was then that she made a decision. She would use her position to change this, starting with Daniel, not as a favor or charity, but as genuine recognition of merit. He deserved a real chance, and she had the power to provide that. The next day, Rebecca convened a meeting with the HR director and the IT manager of the Philadelphia branch. Without revealing her encounters with Daniel, she proposed creating an internal talent development program that would identify employees with potential across all areas of the company, regardless of their current function or academic background. The project, named Bridges, would offer training, mentoring, and real possibility for professional growth. "I want you to start with the security and maintenance teams," she instructed, "especially the night shifts. There are people working during these hours who are rarely noticed by traditional management." The executives promptly agreed, eager to please the CEO. Rebecca knew many would see the initiative as just another social responsibility project for the annual report. Few would understand the true purpose, and that was fine. While the program details were being finalized, Rebecca continued her night visits. Now, however, there was a greater purpose behind her conversations with Daniel. She wanted to get to know him better, understand his aspirations, indirectly prepare him for the opportunity she was creating. "Have you ever thought about what your life would be like if you could work with technology full-time?" she asked one night. Daniel smiled, looking at the programming book on the table. "I think about it every day. It would be like finally breathing after a long time underwater." The metaphor was powerful. Rebecca kept it with her. "And your family? What do they think about your nighttime studies?" "My mom worries about my health, thinks I don't sleep enough. My dad is proud, even without really understanding what I study. And Cassie, well, She's my biggest supporter. She always says that one day we'll work together, developing systems or something like that. Rebecca noticed how his face lit up when talking about his sister. It was a mutual pride, a reciprocal admiration that strengthened both of them. She seems special, she commented. She's the smartest person I know, Daniel replied with conviction, and determined too. Nothing stops her when she puts her mind to something. Seems like that's a family trait, observed Rebecca. He laughed, not denying the comment. There was a growing complicity between them, an ease of conversation that surprised Rebecca. With Daniel, she didn't need to be the ruthless executive, nor the Matthews heiress, nor the public figure. She was just herself, with thoughts and doubts she rarely shared with anyone. What Rebecca didn't know was that other eyes had already noticed her frequent meetings with the security guard, and not everyone viewed that relationship in a positive light. Lawrence Vaughn, administrative manager of the Philadelphia branch, watched the security camera recordings with growing interest. It wasn't a coincidence that he was reviewing the records of the last 30 days. Rumors about frequent visits from an unknown woman to the parking garage had reached his ears through apparently casual comments from the cleaning staff. What? He saw now confirmed his suspicions. The same woman, always at similar times, talking with the night security guard for increasingly longer periods. Something about her seemed familiar, although the images weren't clear enough to recognize her. With certainty. Enlarge this image, he ordered the technician accompanying him. I want to see her face better. When the technician adjusted the zoom, Lawrence felt a chill run down his spine. Even with different hair and casual clothes, he recognized that profile. Rebecca Matthews, the CEO, the woman whose decisions could determine the future of any employee of the group, including his own. You can go, he said to the technician, and not a word about this to anyone, understood? Alone in the room, Lawrence reflected on what he had just discovered. Why would the CEO be visiting the branch in disguise, talking with a simple night security guard? The possibilities were intriguing, and none of them seemed favorable for his own position in the company. Lawrence hadn't reached where he was by being naive. He had built his career knowing exactly when to advance, when to retreat, and most importantly, how to eliminate obstacles, and his intuition told him there was something in those secret visits that could be useful. Meanwhile, unaware of the eyes now watching her, Rebecca continued her visits to Daniel. The Bridges program was almost ready to be implemented, and she planned to use it as a vehicle to formalize a real opportunity for the security guard without raising suspicions about her personal involvement in the case. That Thursday night, she arrived at the parking garage a little later than usual. She found Daniel not in the guardhouse but near the emergency exit, talking on his cell phone. His expression was one of concern. Yes, Mum. I'll try to leave early. No, don't worry, I'll figure it out. Is he conscious? I understand. Tell him I'll be there as soon as I can. When he hung up, he noticed Rebecca's presence. Any problem? She asked, genuinely concerned. Daniel hesitated for a moment, as if pondering how much he should share. My dad isn't doing well. The doctor changed some medications and he's having adverse reactions. Nothing serious, but my mum is alone with him, and my sister is in her exam period at college. You need to go, stated Rebecca without hesitation. It wasn't a question. I can't just abandon my post. The procedure requires me to find a replacement and fill out a temporary absence form 24 hours in advance. Bureaucracy, muttered Rebecca, thinking quickly. Look, go talk to your supervisor. Explain the situation. If there's any problem, say that. Say that the analyst from the finance department authorized it. Rebecca. Daniel frowned, confused. Do you have the authority for that? Trust me, she replied, holding his gaze. Some rules exist to be bent when necessary. Something in Rebecca's conviction seemed to convince Daniel. He nodded, thanked her, and headed to the supervisor's office. 20 minutes later, he returned, with a relieved expression. I got it. Another security guard will come replace me in an hour. In the meantime, I need to finish the round and record everything in the system. Great, I can give you a ride to Camden if you want. My car is right here. The offer surprised Daniel. That's not necessary. I can take the bus. Which will take twice as long. Your family needs you now, not in 2 hours. The firmness in Rebecca's voice left no room for discussion. Daniel accepted, promising to finish his tasks as quickly as possible. While she waited for him in the parking garage, Rebecca didn't notice Lawrence discreetly observing from a distance, nor the almost imperceptible click of his cell phone capturing the moment. The trip to Camden took about 40 minutes. Initially, silence predominated in the car, broken only by Daniel's directions about the route. But gradually the tension gave way, and conversation flowed naturally. "Do you always do this?" he asked suddenly. "Do what?" "Help strangers, offer rides in the middle of the night, break corporate rules to solve real problems." Rebecca smiled, keeping her eyes on the road. "You're not exactly a stranger at this point, and as for breaking rules, let's say I have a particular view on what really matters in a company." "Which would be people," she replied simply. "At the end of the day, companies are made of people, not processes, strategies, or reports. When we forget that, we lose the essential." Daniel observed her with curiosity. "That's not the kind of thing you expect to hear from someone in the finance department." "Maybe that's why I'm an analyst and not a director," she replied, feeling a pang of guilt for the lie but knowing it wasn't yet time to reveal her true identity. When they reached Daniel's neighborhood, Rebecca was surprised by the simplicity of the place. Narrow streets, modest houses, local shops already closed at that hour. A completely different world from downtown Philadelphia, and even further from the reality she knew in New York. "It's here," Daniel indicated, pointing to a small two-story house with simple bars and a tiny porch. "Want to come in? I'm sure my mom will insist on offering you coffee after I tell her about the ride." Rebecca hesitated. She was curious to meet Daniel's family, to see up close the reality he described in their conversations. But she also knew that each step she took in that direction took her further from her role as a distant CEO and closer to a personal involvement that could complicate her plans. "Maybe next time," she finally replied. "Your family needs you now, without distractions, but I accept the invitation for another occasion." Daniel nodded, understanding. Before getting out of the car, he turned to her with a sincere expression. "Thank you, really, not just for the ride, but for seeing beyond the uniform." Those simple words touched Rebecca deeply. When Daniel entered the house and closed the door, she remained parked for a few minutes, absorbing the experience. There was something invigorating in that authenticity, in that simplicity of purpose, something that the corporate world, with its masks and power games, rarely offered. The next day, back in New York, Rebecca conducted a board meeting with the usual coldness and precision that everyone expected from her. She discussed cost cuts, potential mergers, market strategies. No one there could imagine that hours before she was driving through the streets of Camden, talking with a security guard about what really mattered in a company. But while she approved decisions and delegated responsibilities with the same efficiency as always, her mind was partially in Philadelphia, thinking about how to accelerate the Bridges program and ensure that talents like Daniel had the opportunity they deserved. What Rebecca didn't know was that, at that very moment, Lawrence Vaughn was sending a carefully crafted email to some strategic colleagues in the Philadelphia branch. The subject was vague, internal security issues, but the content included a blurry photo of Rebecca and Daniel talking in the parking garage, accompanied by subtle insinuations. Interesting how some people find shortcuts in their careers, isn't it? While many strive for years for a promotion, others seem to find more direct paths to the top. Something to observe in the company's next moves. The email didn't mention names, didn't make direct accusations. It was calculatedly ambiguous, designed to plant a seed of doubt without compromising its author. Lawrence knew that rumors like this spread quickly, gaining new details with each retransmission. It was only a matter of time before the story reached Daniel's ears, or worse, Rebecca's. And when that happened, he would be prepared to exploit the resulting chaos. After all, crises always created opportunities for those who knew how to exploit them. And if there was something Lawrence was an expert at, it was turning others' misfortune into his own benefit. The news about the Bridges program was received with mixed reactions at the Matthews Group. While the specialized press praised the initiative as an example of corporate social responsibility, internally opinions were divided. Some managers saw the opportunity to identify hidden talents. Others considered the project merely a costly distraction of resources that could be better applied in more strategic areas. For Rebecca, however, internal opinion mattered little. She had given clear instructions. The program would start immediately, with special focus on the Philadelphia branch. Her vision was clear: to find more Daniels scattered throughout the company, people with untapped potential, stuck in functions that didn't do justice to their capabilities. What she didn't imagine was that, by that point, Lawrence's email had already circulated extensively, transforming into a much more sordid story. What had begun as vague insinuations about career shortcuts now included rumors about a supposed affair between the disguised CEO and a low-ranking employee, improper favoritism, and even speculation about how this would affect the future of the company. When Rebecca returned to Philadelphia the following week, she immediately perceived that something had changed. Employees observed her with poorly disguised curiosity as she crossed the lobby toward the meeting rooms, where she would spend the day formalizing the details of the Bridges program with the local team. Even Megan, her faithful assistant who accompanied her this time, seemed uncomfortable, as if she knew something she couldn't or didn't want to share. "Any problem?" Rebecca asked during a break. Megan hesitated, nervously adjusting her glasses. "I don't know if I should mention it, Dr. Matthews, but there are rumors circulating about you and, well, about your visits to the branch." Rebecca's stomach contracted. "What kind of rumors?" "The kind that petty people spread when they don't have anything better to do," Megan replied diplomatically. "Insinuations about your motivations for the Bridges program, suggesting there would be personal interests involved." Rebecca maintained a neutral expression, but her mind was working quickly. Someone had seen her, photographed her perhaps. Her conversations with Daniel, the ride to Camden, all of this now was part of a distorted narrative that ran through the corridors of the company. "I understand," she said simply. "Thank you for letting me know, Megan." The afternoon meeting proceeded as planned, but Rebecca felt the weight of the gazes, the poorly disguised tension in the interactions. When everything finally ended and she could retire to her hotel, she was exhausted, not from the work itself, but from the emotional drain of maintaining composure under silent scrutiny. That night, against Megan's implicit advice, she decided to visit the parking garage as usual. She needed to see Daniel, understand if the rumors had also reached him, and if so, what his reaction had been. She found him in the guardhouse, but something was different. The relaxed posture of previous conversations had been replaced by rigid formality. The programming books weren't in sight, just the impeccable uniform and a distant expression that Rebecca had never seen before. "Good evening," she greeted, trying to sound casual. "Good evening, ma'am," replied Daniel, without fully raising his gaze from the security monitors. The use of ma'am instead of Rebecca didn't go unnoticed. "Everything okay with your father?" she asked, trying to establish a connection. "Yes, he's better. Thank you for asking." The silence that followed was dense, loaded with unspoken words. Rebecca felt a knot in her throat. This was worse than any direct confrontation. It was the invisible wall of distrust rising between them. "Daniel, I think we need to talk," she finally said. "I have the impression that something has changed since the last time we saw each other." He hesitated for a moment, as if pondering whether it was worth entering that territory. Finally, he took a deep breath and faced her directly. "I received some comments in the last few days about us, about your reasons for talking to me." "What kind of comments?" asked Rebecca, although she already knew the answer. "The kind that makes a man like me question when something seems too good to be true," he replied, with contained bitterness. "They suggested that I was being prepared for a special promotion, that there would be a particular interest on your part in helping me, that I would be someone important's pet project." Each word hit Rebecca like a small arrow, not for the insinuation itself, which was petty and unfounded, but for the genuine pain she saw in Daniel's eyes. The wounded pride of a man who had always fought for his place with dignity, now reduced to the object of corporate gossip. "Daniel, this isn't—" "You don't need to explain," he interrupted, turning back to look at the monitors. "You don't owe me explanations. We're just casual acquaintances, right? You're a financial analyst and I'm a security guard. Our lives crossed by chance and will soon follow separate paths. That's how it works." The coldness in his voice painfully contrasted with the camaraderie they had developed over the last few weeks. Rebecca felt an almost irresistible impulse to reveal everything, who she really was, the program she had created thinking of him, the true reasons for her interest. But something stopped her. The moment didn't seem appropriate. Not with all. That hurt lingering in the air. "I understand how you feel," she finally said, "and I respect your space. I just want you to know that nothing we did, our conversations, my interest in your studies, had ulterior motives. I genuinely believe in your potential, Daniel." He nodded mechanically, without showing whether he believed her words or not. "I need to continue my round now. Have a good night." And with that he stood up and left the guardhouse, leaving Rebecca alone with the crushing weight of silence. Back at the hotel, she couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in bed, mentally reviewing the entire situation. How had something so pure in its intention transformed into something so distorted? How to fix what was broken without revealing secrets that would further complicate everything? The next morning, during breakfast, Megan found her in the hotel restaurant holding a tablet with a worried expression. "Dr. Matthews, we need to talk." The urgent tone was unusual for the always composed assistant. Rebecca indicated the chair in front of her, and Megan sat down, sliding the tablet across the table. "This has been circulating in the company's internal groups since last night." On the screen, Rebecca saw a photo. She and Daniel in the parking garage, talking near the guardhouse. The quality wasn't good, but it was perfectly possible to recognize them. The caption read, "The real reason for the Bridges program, promoting whoever interests the board." Rebecca felt her blood freeze in her veins, not for the personal exposure, but for what this would mean for Daniel. The vague rumors now had a face, an image, concrete proof. The damage would be irreparable. "Who posted this?" she asked with forced calm. "Anonymous, of course," replied Megan. "But the IP used belongs to a computer at the Philly branch. I can try to track it, if you want." "That won't be necessary," said Rebecca, remembering the calculating expression of Lawrence Vaughan during the previous day's meeting. Always attentive, always observing, always looking for angles to advance. "I think I already know who's behind this." At that moment, her phone vibrated with an email notification. It was from the HR department in Philadelphia, forwarding a resignation letter. Daniel Nelson had left the company that morning, with immediate effect. The stated reason: personal reasons. Rebecca felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She read the email 3 times, looking for some detail, some clue about what had really happened. But there was nothing beyond bureaucratic formalities and professional coldness. "Cancel my meetings today," she said to Megan, abruptly standing up. "All of them." But Dr. Matthews, the video conference with the investors, especially that. 1. Say I had an emergency. In a way, it's true. Without waiting for a response, Rebecca left the restaurant in hurried steps. She needed to find Daniel, explain herself, fix the situation before it was too late. It was no longer just about a corporate program or discovering hidden talents. It was about human dignity, his and her own. But upon reaching the car, she hesitated. What would she say? How would she explain everything without seeming like she was offering charity or, worse, confirming the rumors? And what if he refused to listen to her? For the first time in many years, Rebecca Matthews, the relentless CEO who commanded a corporate empire with surgical precision, felt completely lost. The tools she had always used, power, influence, resources, seemed useless in the face of this purely human challenge. And while she remained there, paralyzed by indecision, the silence that had settled between her and Daniel grew, transforming into an increasingly difficult abyss to cross. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll continue. 3 days had passed since Daniel's resignation, and Rebecca couldn't get the matter out of her head. She was back in New York, conducting meetings and making decisions as she always had. But part of her mind remained in Philadelphia, reliving the moments with Daniel and questioning where she had gone wrong. The Bridges program continued advancing, now with a dedicated team and substantial budget. It was a project that could truly transform lives, opening doors for hidden talents at all levels of the company. But for Rebecca, it had become a painful reminder of a lost connection, of broken trust. "This can't end like this," she murmured to herself, watching the city from her office window on the top floor. It wasn't in her nature to give up, especially when she believed she was right. And something told her that despite everything, there was an unfinished story between her and Daniel that deserved a different ending. She made an impulsive decision. She called Megan and gave quick instructions. "I'm going to Philadelphia tonight. Cancel my appointments for tomorrow. And I need Daniel Nelson and his sister's complete address in Camden." Megan hesitated, clearly concerned. "Dr. Matthews, are you sure? After those photos, any direct contact might fuel the rumors even more." "Some risks are worth taking," Rebecca replied firmly. "And to be honest, Megan, I'm starting to care less and less about what people think." Hours later, Rebecca was driving through the streets of Camden, following the GPS coordinates to the address Megan had obtained. It was Sunday afternoon, and families were enjoying their free time in the small neighborhood parks. Children ran around, elderly people chatted on shaded benches, young couples walked hand in hand, a reality far removed from the corporate world she inhabited. Upon arriving at the Nelsons' house, Rebecca hesitated inside the car. What would she say? How would she be received? She took a deep breath, gathering courage, and finally got out of the vehicle. Before she could reach the gate, however, the door of the house opened and a young woman of about 25 appeared. From her curious look and physical resemblance to Daniel, Rebecca immediately deduced she was face to face with Cassie. "Can I help you?" asked the young woman, observing her with a mixture of caution and curiosity. "I hope so," replied Rebecca, trying to sound casual. "I'm looking for Daniel Nelson. I'm a friend of his." Cassie studied her for a few moments as if trying to solve a puzzle. "You're Rebecca, aren't you? From the Matthews Group?" The direct question caught Rebecca by surprise. "Yes. Did Daniel mention my name?" "More than once," replied Cassie without completely showing her hand. "He's not here if you're looking for him." "I see," said Rebecca, feeling a pang of disappointment. "Could you tell me where I can find him? It's important." Cassie crossed her arms, assuming a protective posture. "Why is it important? What does an executive like you want with my brother after everything that happened?" The question was direct, almost confrontational. Rebecca realized that Cassie knew more than she let on, probably knew the whole story, including her true identity and the rumors circulating in the company. "I think I owe you an explanation," admitted Rebecca. "May I come in for a moment?" Cassie hesitated, but finally opened the gate. "My parents are resting. We can talk on the porch." The small porch of the house had only a wooden bench and a few plant pots. It was simple but well maintained. Rebecca sat down, feeling the weight of Cassie's evaluative gaze. "Daniel told me about you two," said the young woman, breaking the silence. "How you met, the conversations, the book you left for him, the computer he fixed. He spoke of you with admiration, you know. He thought it was incredible how a financial analyst could be so interested in technology and in ordinary people like him." Rebecca felt a lump in her throat. "I was never completely honest with him." "About being the CEO of the Matthews Group?" "Yes, he found that out in the worst possible way," confirmed Cassie, with a touch of bitterness. "Imagine how he felt when colleagues started making jokes about him being the boss's special protege, suggesting there was something improper between you two." "It was never my intention for that to happen," said Rebecca, genuinely distressed. "I just wanted to know the company for real, to see beyond the reports and graphs. And when I met Daniel, I saw someone with incredible potential being wasted for lack of opportunities. And why didn't you tell the truth from the beginning? Why all this charade? It was a fair question, for which Rebecca didn't have a simple answer. At the beginning, it was just my habit. Visiting branches without being recognized to see reality without filters. After that, I think I liked being just Rebecca, without the weight of the position, without the expectations. With Daniel, I could be authentic in a way I rarely can be. Cassie softened her expression a little, as if beginning to understand. He felt used, as if he were just a social project for you, a way to ease your conscience while you returned to your world of privilege. The words were harsh, but Rebecca recognized the truth in them. It was never like that for me. I really believe in his talent, Cassie, so much so that I created an entire program thinking of people like Daniel, brilliant people stuck in functions that don't do justice to their potential. The famous Bridges program, commented Cassie. It's in all the papers. Great social responsibility initiative from the Matthews Group. The ironic tone didn't go unnoticed. It's more than marketing, believe me, defended Rebecca. It's a genuine attempt to change the company's culture, to value talents regardless of diplomas or hierarchical positions. Nice speech, replied Cassie, but without the initial hostility. But that doesn't explain why. You're here now. Rebecca took a deep breath. It was the moment of truth. I'm here because I care about Daniel. Not as a social project, not as a CEO seeking talents, but as a person who genuinely values the connection we had. And I want to fix what I ruined with my silence. For a few moments, only the distant sound of children playing in the street filled the space between them. Cassie studied Rebecca as if trying to see beyond the surface, beyond the polished and successful executive. He's working at a shopping center in the North Zone, she finally said. As a security guard again. Afternoon shift, ends at 8. Rebecca felt a wave of relief. It was more than she had expected to obtain in that first contact. Thank you, Cassie. Really. Don't thank me yet, warned the young woman. Daniel, he's stubborn and proud. It won't be easy to regain his trust. I'm willing to try, affirmed Rebecca, standing up. I believe some connections are too rare to be lost over misunderstandings. When she was already at the gate, Cassie called her again. Rebecca? Yes? He's still studying? Every night, no matter how tired he is, now with a new flashlight at least. There was an implicit message in that information. Daniel hadn't given up on his dreams, despite the disappointments. Rebecca smiled, feeling renewed determination. Thank you for telling me. Hours later, Rebecca was waiting in the shopping center parking lot, leaning against her car. The place was busy, with people coming and going from stores and restaurants. No one paid special attention to the discreetly dressed woman who consulted her watch every few minutes. At 8:05, Daniel emerged from a side door, wearing the dark blue uniform of the security company. He looked tired, but walked with the same quiet dignity that Rebecca had always admired in him. When he saw her, he stopped for a moment, visibly surprised. Then he continued walking, as if intending to pass right by her. Daniel, called Rebecca, taking a step forward. Can we talk? Please. He hesitated, looking around as if checking if anyone was watching them. What are you doing here, Dr. Matthews? The formal use of her surname was like a small barrier erected between them. Rebecca felt the impact, but didn't retreat. I came to apologize, she said simply, and to explain if you're willing to listen. Daniel studied her for a moment, his face a mask of contained emotions. Finally, he indicated a bench near the parking lot exit. I have 10 minutes before my bus. It was a small opening, a crack in the door that had closed between them. Rebecca accepted it with gratitude. Sitting side by side with a calculated distance between them, they began a conversation that could rebuild bridges or confirm them definitively destroyed. The future of both depended on the words that would be spoken in the next few minutes, words that Rebecca knew needed to be more honest than anything she had ever shared with Daniel until then. Why didn't you tell me who you really were? Asked Daniel, breaking the initial silence. His voice wasn't accusatory, just tired. Why all this charade? Rebecca took a deep breath, knowing that the answer needed to be absolutely honest. In the beginning, it was just my working method, observing without being observed, understanding the company beyond reports and spreadsheets. After that, I was afraid. Afraid? Repeated Daniel, surprised. The CEO of the Matthews Group afraid? Afraid that if you knew who I was, you would change. You would stop being authentic, stop speaking freely, stop treating me as an equal. Afraid of losing the real connection we were building. She paused, facing him directly. The more time passed, the harder it became to reveal the truth. And when I finally decided to do it, through the Bridges program, the rumors arrived first. Daniel looked away, staring at the movement in the parking lot. You know what hurt the most? It wasn't the malicious comments from colleagues, not even discovering you were the CEO. It was your silence after everything started. When the gossip spread, and you simply said nothing. The observation hit Rebecca like a physical blow. He was right. When the rumors started, she hesitated, too worried about the implications for the company, her professional image, the success of the program she was implementing. You're right, she admitted. I failed you at that moment. I should have faced the situation head-on, explained everything, defended your reputation. Instead, I froze, trying to calculate the perfect move, as I do in business. But people aren't business, are they? A ghost of a smile passed across Daniel's face. No, they definitely aren't. The Bridges program was inspired by you, continued Rebecca. Not as a charity project, but because you made me see how much talent we're wasting because of prejudices, bureaucracy, and lack of real opportunities. It was an epiphany for me. Still, I resigned, replied Daniel. Maybe it was wounded pride, I don't know. But I couldn't bear the looks, the whispers, the insinuations. It was as if any future achievement was already tainted in advance. I understand, said Rebecca, and I respect your decision. I didn't come here to convince you to come back, although I'd love it if you did. I came because I needed you to know the truth, to understand that you were never a project or a charity case for me. You are a person I genuinely admire. The bus Daniel was waiting for appeared at the corner, approaching the nearby stop. He looked at the vehicle, then at Rebecca, as if pondering his options. I have to go, he said, standing up. My mum is waiting for dinner. Rebecca nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. She had said what she needed to, even if she hadn't achieved the results she had hoped for. I understand. Thank you for listening to me, Daniel. When he was already a few steps away, he turned again. That laptop, the one you gave me to fix, you damaged it on purpose, didn't you, to test me? Rebecca smiled, admitting with a gesture. Guilty. I wanted to see how you would handle the challenge. And how did I do? He asked, with a curiosity that reminded Rebecca of the Daniel from their first conversations. Exceptionally well. Better than many certified professionals I know. He nodded, absorbing the compliment. That note in the contract that you left for me, you never went unnoticed. Was it sincere? Every word, confirmed Rebecca. From the first moment I saw you studying under that weak flashlight, I noticed something special, something that transcended the position, the uniform, the circumstances. A silent determination that reminded me why I started all this, why I built the Matthews Group. Daniel was silent for a few moments. The bus was already at the stop, and the driver was looking impatiently in his direction. I have a proposal, he finally said. If you're really interested in my potential, and not just in easing your conscience. I'm listening, replied Rebecca, feeling a spark of hope. I don't want to return to the Matthews Group as part of a special program or as the CEO's protégé. I want a fair chance, based exclusively on my merit. A test, a technical assessment, whatever is necessary to prove my worth. Rebecca smiled, appreciating Daniel's pride and dignity. Seems perfectly fair. And one more thing, he added. If I pass, I want to help develop this Bridges program. I know dozens of people like me, talented, dedicated, but stuck in functions that don't explore their potential. People who would never have direct access to you as I did. Consider yourself hired for that too, said Rebecca, extending her hand. Daniel hesitated for only a second before shaking it. The contact was brief, professional, but loaded with a meaning that transcended words. "I have to go," he repeated, indicating the bus with a head movement. "Send me the details of this assessment when it's ready." "I'll do that," promised Rebecca. "And Daniel, thank you for giving me this second chance." He nodded one last time before turning and running toward the bus that was already closing its doors. The driver, seeing him arrive, waited a few more seconds. Small gestures of kindness that Rebecca realized happened every day, everywhere, regardless of positions or social status. As she watched the bus drive away, she felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in a long time. There was still a long way ahead, barriers to overcome, prejudices to challenge, but the first step, perhaps the most difficult one, had been taken. 3 months later, the main auditorium at the Matthews Group headquarters in New York was packed. Executives, managers, analysts, and employees from various sectors gathered for the official launch of the Bridges program, now completely structured and ready to be implemented in all branches across the country. On stage, Rebecca Matthews, impeccable in her executive suit, awaited the moment to begin her presentation. At her side, equally formal in his new role, Daniel Nelson adjusted the final details of the digital presentation they had prepared together. "Nervous?" she asked discreetly. "A little," he admitted. "I'm not used to speaking to so many important people." "They're just people," replied Rebecca, repeating what he himself had indirectly taught her months before. "Some with more responsibilities than others, but at the end of the day, just people." Daniel smiled, recognizing his own lessons returned. "You're right. And besides, I know the project better than anyone here." This was true, after passing with top marks in the technical assessment, which Rebecca had ensured was identical to that applied to any other candidate. Daniel had been hired as a senior developer, but his greater impact had come through his contribution to the Bridges program. His personal experiences, combined with his technical knowledge, had transformed the initial project into something much deeper and more effective. When Megan signaled that it was time to begin, Rebecca gave Daniel one last encouraging look and walked to the podium. The murmur from the audience gradually diminished until a respectful silence settled in. "Good morning, everyone," she began. "We are here to officially present the Bridges program, an initiative that I firmly believe will transform not only the Matthews Group, but the way we see talent and potential in the corporate environment." As she spoke about the objectives and structure of the program, Rebecca observed the reactions from the audience. Some seemed genuinely interested, others clearly skeptical, a few visibly opposed to the idea. In the right corner, she noticed Lawrence Vaughn, who had been transferred to New York after a restructuring at the Philadelphia branch. His gaze revealed the same calculating ambition as always, but now there was also a touch of caution, as if he had learned that underestimating Rebecca Matthews wasn't a wise move. "But no one can better explain the essence of this program than the person who contributed most to its creation," continued Rebecca. "Therefore, I pass the word to our new talent development coordinator, Daniel Nelson." Daniel walked to the podium with a quiet confidence that impressed Rebecca. 3 months before, he wore a security uniform and studied under the weak light of a portable flashlight. Now he was about to present a revolutionary program to the main executives of one of the largest technology companies in the country. The transformation was remarkable, but Rebecca knew that the merit was entirely his. She had just opened the door. He had made the entire journey on his own feet. "Thank you, Dr. Matthews," Daniel began, his firm voice echoing through the auditorium. The Bridges program was born from a simple but powerful realization. The greatest asset of any company isn't its buildings, its equipment, or its patents. It's the people. And often, the greatest talents are hidden in the least obvious places. As Daniel conducted the presentation with confidence and eloquence, Rebecca noticed Cassie in the last row, watching her brother with evident pride. The young woman had been one of the first beneficiaries of the program, securing an internship in the engineering department while completing her studies. At the end of the presentation, the applause was enthusiastic. The initial skepticism had given way to genuine interest, and even the most resistant seemed willing to give the initiative a chance. During the cocktail reception that followed, Rebecca and Daniel circulated separately through the room, he answering technical questions about the program, she dealing with strategic and financial implications. At one point, their gazes crossed across the crowded room. There was no need for words or gestures, just a silent acknowledgement of the path they had traveled together. Later, when most of the guests had already left, they met again on the building's balcony, observing the illuminated city that stretched as far as the eye could see. "I think it was a success," commented Daniel. "Without a doubt," agreed Rebecca. "You were extraordinary in there. Natural, confident, convincing." "I had a good mentor," he replied with a smile, "someone who believed in me when even I didn't fully believe." Rebecca shook her head. "You would have gotten there anyway, Daniel. Perhaps by a longer and more tortuous path, but you would have gotten there. People like you always find a way." "Maybe," he conceded. "But having someone who sees your potential, who opens doors that would normally be closed, that makes all the difference. That's exactly what the Bridges program represents." They remained in silence for a few moments, contemplating the night city. They were no longer the CEO and the security guard, the powerful executive and the humble employee. They were just two people who had learned valuable lessons from each other. "You know what impresses me most about you?" Rebecca suddenly asked. "What?" "How you kept your essence intact despite everything. The same dignity, the same integrity I saw that first night in the parking garage. Many would have been dazzled by the sudden rise, would have changed. You remain the same." Daniel reflected on the comment. "Maybe because I never forgot where I came from, or maybe because I had the example of someone who, even at the top, was able to see value in a night security guard studying under a weak flashlight." Rebecca's phone vibrated with a message. It was Megan, informing that the car was ready to take her to the airport. An international commitment awaited her the next morning. "I need to go," she said, putting away the phone. "But before that, I want you to know something. The Bridges program is just the beginning. We have a lot of work ahead, many changes to implement, many minds to open. Are you ready for that?" Daniel nodded, his eyes reflecting the city lights. "More than ready. I'm eager." When they said goodbye, there was no longer any shadow of resentment or distrust between them. Just mutual respect and the certainty that sometimes the most unlikely connections are precisely those that have the power to transform not just individuals, but entire systems. As her car crossed the streets of New York toward the airport, Rebecca reflected on the journey of the past few months. She had started just wanting to better understand her company, to see beyond the numbers and graphs. In the process, she rediscovered something she had almost forgotten in years of corporate battles and difficult decisions: the transformative power of genuine empathy, sincere recognition, real human connection. And perhaps that was the true bridge that needed to be built, not just within the Matthews Group, but in a corporate world increasingly distant from the reality of ordinary people. A bridge between seemingly separate worlds, between distinct life experiences, between hearts that, despite external differences, shared the same fundamental aspirations: to be seen, to be valued, to be respected for who they truly are. For Rebecca Matthews, this was the most valuable lesson she could have learned. And for Daniel Nelson, it was the confirmation of something he had always instinctively known, that beyond appearances, beyond positions and uniforms, beyond social and economic differences,